So, quite sure if that first intro made it, so I'll try it again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 2021 Seminar Series talk. We're going to give it about 5 minutes so more people can join. So we'll see you at 12:05. All right, everyone, let's get started. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to the June 2021 Seminar Series Talk. My name is Brian Hogg, and I'm an environmental scientist with the State Water Board's Office of Information Management Analysis. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started here. Just so everybody knows, these are public talks, and they are being recorded. And these recordings after each talk are posted on the College of Water Informatics events webpage. And written questions, we're gonna have a Q&A session after the talk. Written questions can be posted in the Q&A box down below. And you can also, if you'd prefer, ask a question verbally, just click the raise your hand icon at the bottom there. And everybody will be muted until the end of the talk. And those who wish to raise their hand and verbalize a question will be able to do so at that time. During the Q&A session, there will also be a very brief survey for you to fill out, and please do so, as we're always looking to improve these talks. And with that, today's speaker is Allison Calla-Lang, who will be presenting an introduction to Microsoft's Power BI. Allison, a University of California, Davis graduate, also works in the Office of Information Management Analysis, where she provides support for the California Integrated Water Quality System and uses Power BI as part of the Water Board's Performance Measures Program. And with that, please join me in welcoming Allison.
Thank you for that introduction, Brian. Okay, so today we're going to have an introduction to Microsoft Power BI. And in today's agenda, I'll give a brief overview of Power BI, lay out the typical workflow of creating an interactive report, then I'll walk through an example of creating your own dashboard, and then I'll end with how to get started on your own and some resources. So to start, Power BI is an interactive reporting tool that allows users to connect to data, transform and shape their data based on their reporting needs, and then create reports to visualize that data where they can later be shared. When talking about Power BI, there are really two components, Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service, which I'll get into in the next slide. So the first part of Power BI is Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is an application that can be installed in your computer for free. This is where users can connect to their data source or data sources and make changes to their data using the built-in Power Query editor. Then you can create reports using a collection of visualizations, and then once that report is created, it can then be published on the web using Power BI Service. So Power BI Service is where you can view your published dashboards, and depending on your data source, you can set up a schedule to automatically refresh your data. And then if you have a Power BI license, you can also share your reports with others in your organization. So to recap, the typical workflow of creating your own report is starting in Power BI Desktop and then sharing and viewing those reports in Power BI Service. So before I demonstrate how to create a dashboard, I'd like to highlight some of Power BI's desktop features. The first is the ability to connect to one or more data sets and combining data sets from different sources. So that includes sources most users are familiar with, such as Excel, text, and CSV files, but also includes many more, such as importing data from SQL tables, and then data from web links as well. You can then transform your data using Power BI's built-in Power Query editor. So you can change, using the editor, you can change data types, remove columns, append or merge tables, and then you can also create custom columns using mQuery formulas. So mQuery is the Power Query coding language. You can also view and manage the relationships between tables using the Power BI modeling view. And lastly, users can create interactive dashboards with the ability to cross-filter between graphs and tables and the freedom to design your dashboards using Power BI's easy-to-use interface. Okay, so now I'll be showing an example of a Power BI dashboard, which I have linked here. So the following dashboard represents wastewater treatment facility inspections conducted by the regional water boards. And this data is from the California Integrated Water Quality System, also known as CWIX. And this data set is actually posted on data.ca.gov. So the data you're seeing now are inspections between 2018 and 2021, as indicated by this slicer down here at the bottom of the page. This slicer allows the viewer to display data between the selected years. So if I was only interested in 2021 data, I could enter that, and that will filter my visuals so that it only displays data for that year. You'll also notice that there's a filter pane right on the right-hand side of this page, along with some filter criteria. So these criteria were actually chosen by me. So, so yeah, you do have the ability to allow your report viewers to filter based on your selected fields. So again, one of the main features of Power BI is that it's interactive. So you can select points in visuals or on your graphs, and that will cross-filter across your other visuals. So for instance, if I was interested in Region 5 inspections, I can select this bar, and that will filter the remaining visuals. And then for this map, you can also select points on the map to filter across the tables and graphs. And then if I wanted more information on a specific data point, you can always try hovering over, and that will display a tooltip with some information. Alternatively, you can right-click a data point so that you can view the data behind that point. Another feature of a Power BI dashboard is that when you hover over these graphs and tables, you'll notice there are 3 dots with some additional options, which includes exporting data to Excel or CSV format. So now that we know what a Power BI dashboard can look like, we can try recreating this dashboard here from scratch. So to create a report, you want to start in Power BI Desktop. So I already have it installed here. When you open up Power BI, there's an introductory window with a Get Data button and then a list of recently accessed files. On the right-hand side, you'll also see some links to videos and resources that includes tutorials and information on Power BI Desktop monthly updates. I'll exit out for now. So before you can design your dashboard, you have to connect to your data first. So we have this Get Data button here. I'm going to select the lower portion of this button, and that will open up a list of common data sources. If the data source you want to connect to is not listed here, you can select the upper portion of this button. So you'll notice that there are 2 parts to this button. So selecting the upper portion will open up a new window with additional data source options. Okay, so I'm going to connect to my data, and I will connect to my data using a web link, which I have ready here. And again, I'm using a web link from a data set in data.ca.gov. So let me try. So this is the State Water Board page, and I kind of took a shortcut, but I have the link in my PowerPoint point. And then this is the data set that I selected. Stable, so I'll just skip that part for now. Oh, here it is. So this is my data set, and then I took my link right here. It usually doesn't take a while, but I think my internet connection is a little unstable, so that's probably why it's taking a minute. So you'll see that I'm now connected to my data, and there's this window that popped up that allows me to preview my data. If you don't want to make changes to your data set, you could select this load button, but I do want to make some changes. So I'm going to hit this transform data button so that I can make my changes in the built-in Power Query editor. So similar to that preview, we have a preview of our data. It's only limited up to 1,000 rows. But over here on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's an applied steps section. This section will record and track steps that are performed so that every time you refresh or update your data set, these steps will always be applied. So as you can see, Power Query Editor automatically promotes the first row as the header and then changes the data types for you. You can always delete steps by highlighting the step that you want to be deleted and then select this X button. Or you can make changes to your step by double clicking. So for this example, I want to remove some columns I don't need. Again, this is the inspections file. So I don't want columns that aren't related to inspection information. So I'm going to select these two columns right here. I could right click to remove those columns, or I can use this home ribbon right over here, and there's a remove columns button. Great. So it recorded that step. And now I want to change this column right here. So the inspection date is has a text data type, which is indicated by this little icon right here. If I select that icon, I can, there's a selection of other data types, and I want to select date. Great. So now I want to filter my data for wastewater treatment facilities. So I will scroll to the left, and then here in the place subtype, I'll select this arrow and filter for wastewater treatment facilities. Great. And you can also change header names by double clicking. If you're not familiar with the water board structure, there are 9 regional boards, but region 5 and 6 have multiple offices, which is denoted by the letters. So I'll change this column header so that it's more descriptive. So now I want to add a column that has the region values instead of the regional board office. So to do that, I'll go to this Add Column ribbon, and you could select Custom Column to enter your mQuery formula, but since this change is simple, I just want to remove the letters pretty much. I'm going to select the Column from Examples button. So to use the column from examples, I will highlight, let me just exit out actually. I'm going to highlight the regional board office and select column from examples. And then you'll see that there's a new column where I could enter my sample data. But to begin, I will change the column name to region. And then, so for this row, I still want my region to be region 3 since there's no sub-office. And then you'll notice that the remaining rows are auto-populated. However, you'll see that for region 5, it still has the office attached. So I will change that to a 5, and that will update the query so that the region 5 and region 6 offices don't have the letter attached. So I'm happy with that, so I'll press OK. Great, so now we have our new column, and there are no other changes I want to make to my query, so I'm going to this Home tab and then apply my changes. Okay, so now we have our data set loaded. But before I create my dashboard, let's take a quick tour of the Power BI interface. So in the top of the page, you'll notice some ribbons. The Home ribbon has some of the important buttons. So it has the Get Data button, which we've already tried, and the Transform Data button, which will open up the Power Query editor. And then we have the Publish button here. So this is where you can publish your report to the Power BI service. And then on the right-hand side, we have a few panes. So the Filter pane, which we've already seen in the Power BI report view. And then we have the Visualizations pane, which has a collection of visuals to choose from. And this is also where you can format your visuals. Then the Fields pane right here is where your data set is displayed. So on the left, you'll notice that there are 3 icons for the different views. So we're in the report view. So this is where you create and build your report. And then we have the data view, where you can view your data sets. And unlike the Power BI query editor, this is not limited to 1,000 rows. So for this particular data set, there are about 18,000 rows. And then we have the modeling view. This is where you can view and manage the relationships between your data tables. So if I had more than one data table, they would be displayed here. So I'll go back to my report view so that we can start creating our dashboard. To start, let's add a title to our dashboard. I'll hit this text box button right here and then reshape the box and enter our title. Then I'll highlight my text and change the font size, maybe make it bold. Okay. So the first visual I'd like to display are the number of inspections conducted for wastewater facilities over time. So I will expand our data set table, and then I'll select this line chart, place it where I want it in my dashboard. So for this, I want to count the number of inspections over time. So I'll take our inspection ID, And we're just going to simply do a drag and drop method. So I'll drag the inspection ID to our values field. And then you'll notice that it automatically says that we want it to be counted. Next, we want our date in our axis. So I'll take our inspection date and drag it to this axis field. And make these bigger. So you'll notice for our inspection date, there's actually a hierarchy. So we have year, quarter, month, day. So if we left it like that, we can actually drill down and go between each level. And then use this up arrow to drill back up. But for this visual, we only want to display our year. So I'll exit out and remove the quarter, month, and day. Okay, this looks great, but now I want to change my title and maybe change the y-axis title. So I'll go to this paintbrush icon so that we can format our format our visual. And then go down to our title and expand that section and then change our title name. Change the alignment. You can also choose to change your text size and your font. You can also change your data colors if you'd like. And again, I want to change the y-axis title. So I'll go down to axis title and rename it. Number of inspections. And then you'll notice that there are a lot of format options and it could be quite overwhelming. So if you'd like, and you could always use the search button. So sometimes I use it to change my font. So that will display all the font options. Okay, that looks great. So now I want to be able to filter this visual by the years. So I'll take this slicer button, and this will allow me to filter my graph based on my inspection start date. So right here it has the dates, but I only want it by year. So I'll select this caret and select date hierarchy, and then do the same steps I took and delete everything but the year. And then it has some checkboxes, but I want it to be between dates. So I'll select this down caret button and select this between option. And then let's change that to 2018. Great. Okay, so the next visual I'd like to make is a graph showing the number of inspections conducted by each regional board. So I'll take this stack custom column chart and then take our region field, drag it to the axis, take our inspection ID field so that it could be counted. And then you'll notice that the regions aren't in order. So I'll select the three dots for more options and then change the sorting by our region. And the first region that shows up is region 9. So let me just go back and sort by ascending. That looks great. Let's make a few more changes by formatting. So again, paintbrush, go down to the title section. And then maybe add some data labels by turning this data labels option on. go down to our y-axis and change our axis title. So that looks great, but what if I want my report viewers to be able to drill down so that they'll be able to see the numbers for each of our office. So for Region 5 and Region 6, like I said before, there are some sub-offices. So to be able to view the numbers for each office, I'll take the Regional Board Office field and I'll actually drag it right below the region. And then you'll notice that there are some arrows, and you could actually drill down on your data. So then now it's now we could see the numbers for each office. Great, so now I want to create a map of the inspection. So I'll select this map option here, resize our visual, drag our place lat to this latitude field, place long in the longitude field, and then that looks good, except now we see that there is this inspection that was conducted here in the ocean, which I don't think is correct. So for now, I'm going to actually exclude that by right-clicking on the dot and then excluding it from our map. And now we have a map of our inspections, but I want to color code it by inspection type. So let's take the inspection type field and drag it to our legend. That looks good. So you'll notice that when you hover over a point that there's a tooltip with some information. So the information you see now are actually just the fields that we use to create the visual. So I want to include the facility name in this tooltip. So I'll take facility name and drag it down to the tooltip section. And then you'll notice that now we have some information on the facility for that point. Okay, I'll go back to my format, change the title. Okay, that looks good. So now I want to include a count of the number of inspections summed up and the number of facilities that were inspected. So to do that, I'll take this card and I'll actually make it smaller so that it fits. And then I'll take our inspection ID field and drag it. And then you'll notice that it shows the first inspection ID. We don't want that, so I'll choose account. And then you can also rename this card by double clicking on this field and then renaming it. Now I'll go back to format, and then of course you can choose to format it however you'd like. For this one, let's just change the color. Maybe change it to blue. And then maybe add a border to it. Okay, that looks good. So now I want to make the same visual, but this time we want to count the number of facilities inspected. So I'll take this card and we'll count, we'll do a count of inspected facility IDs or facility name. So instead of a count, I want a distinct count since facilities could be inspected more than once. And then again, I'll change the title to and I want to format this card similar to this card. So one really cool feature one that you're probably familiar with using in Word is the Format Painter. So I selected the visual, and then I'll select this so that they could be formatted similarly. Great, so now we have our visuals. So let's just start by clicking around just to make sure everything's working as expected. So when I clicked on a data point in our line chart, the other visuals are also filtering, but you'll notice that here in this bar graph that it's actually highlighting instead of filtering. So I'll go to the Format ribbon, and then you have the option to edit interactions between the visuals. So for this one, it's highlighting. So I don't want highlight mode, I want filter mode. So I'll select the filter mode. And so there we go. So as I said, you could edit interactions between visuals. So if I don't want, for instance, if I don't want this year filter to affect the other visuals, I'll just select this year filter, and then maybe I'll select the map and select none, so that this filter is not affected, or so that this visual is not affected by this filter. So as you can see, these visuals are changing, but not our map. Okay, so I'll undo that change. So in our report view, in our demo example, our dashboard example, I'm sorry, we had the filter panes. So you can actually choose to hide this filter pane if you don't want your report readers to see it, but I'll allow to be viewed for now. And you can choose additional filter criteria. So you can select by facility name. I'll allow users to enter the WDID if they have it. And then maybe allow them to filter by inspection date. So you'll see that there's a filter type selection here. I'm going to select advanced filtering. There's also options for relative date. So you could filter the data between in the last few weeks, in the last few days, whatever you'd like. But for this one, let's do advanced filtering, and then let's collapse that. So when you have this filter pane, this will filter for all the visuals. So that's kind of different from the slicer, because you could edit the interactions between the slicer, whereas you can't for the filter pane. Okay. Another feature I'd like to show is that when you go to this view section, you can actually change the theme of your report. So one I like to use is classroom, but you also can create your own report or report theme. So if you go down here, you can browse for more themes or customize the current theme so that you can make it your own and then save that theme for later use. So now that we have our dashboard, I'm going to go ahead and publish it to Power BI service. So I haven't saved it yet. So let's save it to my desktop. And let's just name it Power BI example. And then Power BI files are saved with this file type. So I'll save it. And then once it's been saved, you can publish to Power BI using whatever workspace you have available. Most new users will have the My Workspace option, so that's what I'll choose for today. Okay, so then once it's been published, there's going to be a link so that you could view your report. And then so now your report is available in Power BI Service. You can share your report for people in your organization. These options might be different for each person, especially if you have a license or not. So I think if you have the Power BI Pro license, you'll be able to share with people outside of your organization, but I could be wrong about that. Okay, so now that I've shown you how to create, publish, and view your dashboard, let's go back to our presentation. So here are some resources to help you get started. The first link here is the link to install Power BI Desktop. This should take you automatically to the Microsoft Power BI page. You can also use the Microsoft Store option if you have a PC. And then here are some Power BI guides created by Microsoft. They're actually really helpful, so I would refer to these if you're getting started. You can also refer to the Power BI community through their blogs. This is a good resource for when you're stuck or having trouble executing a specific task. Most of the time, your answer will be in these blogs. And then we have a link to the Microsoft Power BI channel. There's tons of Power BI tutorials on YouTube, but the one here is the Microsoft BI channel. So that pretty much concludes the presentation. Thank you so much for listening in. While it was brief, I hope that you now have enough information to get started with Power BI and start creating some dashboards. If you have any questions, I have my email listed here. But for now, I'll hand it off to Brian to answer some questions you guys have now.
Great. Thanks so much, Allison. That was fantastic. We do have some questions and we're running out of time, so probably have to move through them pretty quickly. The first one actually relates to something you touched upon briefly towards the end of the demonstration in regards to potential licensing. As a commenter had mentioned that she could not access the inspection Power BI dashboard. It said that basically it's not in a tenant account and that the account needs to be added as an external user in the tenant account first. Do you know if that's going to be changing for the water boards at any point in time?
You know, I'm actually not sure. I'm still myself, I'm still trying to figure out how to share to external users. So for now, I don't have an answer to that.
Fair enough. The next question here is a Power BI published report accessible compliant?
I'm actually not sure, but you could try making it accessible. So if I go back to Power BI desktop, of course, this is still new to me. So if I were to select a visual and go back to our format field, you'll see this general option. So you can actually add alt text. So here in the alt text section, it says enter a description that will be read by a screen reader on selecting the visual. And I think I did see, I did find a guidance document by Power BI about how to toggle through a Power BI report using just your keyboard. So I'm not quite sure, but I think you could try to make it accessible.
And before I get to the next question, just a quick reminder that there is a feedback survey in the chat box there. So please fill that out we're always looking to improve the seminar series. The second question here is, what mapping features can we use with the Waterboard with Power BI? Are they going to allow us to use ArcGIS?
I don't have information on that, sorry, but we do have some map options here. But other than that, I'm not sure about ArcGIS and Power BI.
Okay, next question is, who can create dashboards? Our use of Power BI seems limited by either sharing information as PDFs or the Power BI file.
What was the first part to that question, Brian?
It's just asking who can create dashboards. Perhaps
Oh.
it's another issue regarding Waterboard employees and licensing agreements.
Yeah, so anyone can create a dashboard since Power BI Desktop is free, but there might be limitations to actually publish your dashboard to Power BI service, which this is Power BI service. So you could at least get to this point and publish your dashboard to your workspace, which I think I know that users that don't have licenses could do that.
And the next question is, can a data set comprised of one data type be run through a series of calculations within BI and then displayed? Or do the calculations need to be down prior to BI accessing the data?
Do you mind repeating that question one more time, Brian?
Sure. Can a data set comprised of one data type be run through a series of calculations within Power BI and then displayed, or do the calculations need to be down prior to BI accessing the data?
If I'm understanding the question, you can do your calculations in Power BI. You don't, maybe I'm getting confused by the data type part in the question, but you could do your calculations in Power BI using either Power Query Editor or there's an option to create measures. So if I were to right click on a field, you can create a measure. So then you could do more calculations, but this uses a different coding language, which I can't think of right now. But yeah, so you can do calculations in the Power Query Editor or here in the Power BI reporting view.
Okay, and I believe this is the last question here. Can Power BI dashboards be integrated into websites, e.g. a Waterboard webpage?
Yes, they can. So if I go to File, there's an option here to embed a report. So you can actually embed to a SharePoint site, a website, or publish to the web. The publish to web option is the functions in the publish to web option are actually limited. I believe that when you share a link using the publish to web option, that you're not able to export data. So there's that. But if you want to see some examples of published Power BI reports, we do have it in the performance report page. So let me just show you how to get there first. So if we go to the Waterboards page, I believe it's down at the bottom, there's a link to performance report. And then we have this page here. Most of the Power BI dashboards I created are here in the regulate section. And then there are dashboards embedded in these pages. Yeah, so we have a few examples on the Waterboard performance page.
Okay. I had a question actually.
Sure, Brian.
Have you used Tableau or RShiny or any other data viz programs out there? And if so, what are the pros and cons of using Power BI over those, or what are the strengths and weaknesses? I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but a lot of these, especially for those of us who are not necessarily that tech savvy, there's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of data viz programs these days, and I only have experience with Tableau myself, so I'm just wondering if you know, you could kind of outline maybe why one would be better for another in certain circumstances, certain data types.
Sure. Power BI is actually my first business intelligence tool, so I'm not really able to give you some pros and cons. But speaking from talking with other Tableau users, I know that the ability to design your report, there's more functionality in Power BI, so you have more freedom to design. But again, I'm just hearing that from other users. But other than that, I'm not really sure what the pros and cons are, but that's something to look into.
Great. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Allison once again and thank everybody for attending. As a reminder, apart from the feedback survey, of course, this presentation will be available on the College of Water Informatics events webpage in the past events section. And we hope to see you all again next month. Thanks.